It's not about the price, it's about the rate. So it's his seller, $400,000 listing, okay? And buyer comes along and offers $350,000. And Rob remembers the class that I did for them. And what I was talking about is most people aren't trying to make lowball offers because they're just trying to get the house for cheaper. They're trying to make their payment more affordable. So when they're getting a mortgage, in which case this buyer did, what Rob did, he goes, Scott, I remember that thing you told me about. He's like, send it over to me, because they were making an offer. It was his $400,000 listing. They offered $350,000, and he knew the seller's not going to take 50 grand off the price. All right. But he was smart. And he went back to the buyer's agent and goes, is the reason why they're making such a lowball offer because they just want a lower mortgage payment? And of course, the buyer responded and said, yes, that's exactly what it is. They want their payment to be lower where they can afford it. And Rob said, well, that's great. We're fighting over the wrong thing. It's not about the price. It's about the rate. And so what he did was I did up a calculator for the buyer, and I showed him how they could actually get the house for $400,000, but with the seller giving like a 4% credit toward their interest rate reduction. And it brought the rate down to 5.25%. So on this little slide, you can see here, if they had gotten the house for $350,000 at a 7.25% rate, that's their principal and interest would have been $1,910 a month. Versus what we did for them, we got 4%. We went full price, got 4% back from the seller, and it actually ended up being $1,767 a month because their interest rate was 5.25% instead of 7.25%. So the rate mattered more. And so the buyer came over to us. They're like, "Oh, that's brilliant," because that's really the only reason why we were making the lower offer to begin with, is we wanted a more affordable payment. And our lender, I think it was Rocket or somebody, just said, oh, the rate's going to be this. And so they put that in a mortgage calculator and said, well, we can afford that house if we get it for $350,000, because they think the rate was the fixed thing. No, we got the seller to buy down the rate. Now they got a 5.25. Now they could afford it at $400,000. In fact, it was cheaper. It was actually cheaper per month than had they got it for the $350,000 at the 7.25. They actually saved themselves $300 a month. So you got to think about those things. So if you're on the seller side and you get a low ball offer like that, and you know they're getting a mortgage, just give me a call. I can run a calculator and show them how they could actually pay more, get the credit, and have a lower payment.